Hi everybody. For my network learning project, I changed the oil in my car, and I did that this morning. I drove 30 miles and my car did not break down or spring a leak, so yes, success. What I'm going to do is narrate over some video that I took of my oil change just to explain what I learned and what I did. So here I've gathered all my tools and equipment that I'll need to do the oil change. I've got 5 quarts of fully synthetic OW20 motor oil. I've got my drain pan and funnel, my oil filter, gloves and glasses for safety, the Fumoto valve I'll be installing, an adjustable wrench, paper towels for cleanup, and a white plastic bucket for trash. And I'll use this cardboard box to store the oil drain pan when I'm done. According to Bryant in a 2019 Napa Online blog post, the first thing you need to do is start your engine and let the car idle for 2 to 3 minutes so that the engine oil warms to about 100 degrees. Warmer oil flows faster. But if you've been driving around, you will need to shut your engine off and let the car cool down for 30 minutes so you don't get burned by hot oil. A good way to tell when to turn the engine off is by watching the coolant temperature low indicator. Mine's the blue light in the bottom left, and when the coolant is warm enough, which means the engine and engine oil have warmed up enough, it'll turn off. Mine turned off after 3.5 minutes. Next, I shut the engine off and popped the hood. In a 2018 YouTube video, Auto Resource recommended pulling up the dipstick and removing the engine oil cap to allow for better airflow when draining the engine oil. Now, underneath the car, it took me about a minute here to loosen the oil drain plug, unscrew it all the way, and remove it. I used an adjustable wrench based on an article by the auto review team on their website. They actually recommended using the appropriate sized wrench to prevent rounding off of the bolt, but mentioned an adjustable wrench would do in a pinch. Since I wouldn't be using this plug again, I had no qualms about using the adjustable wrench. The gloves and safety glasses were recommended by Lake Chevy in their video for car care kiosk, just in case you encounter any fluids like battery acid or coolant. Used engine oil is also considered hazardous, so the less fluid that you make direct contact with, the better. Once I got the oil drain plug out, the oil came out pretty fast. In fact, the oil flow changed to a trickle just after 30 seconds, but I decided to wait longer to get as much out as possible. While I waited for the oil to drain, I went to replace the oil filter. I ended up having to use 2 hands, and when I removed it, a bunch of oil leaked out of the filter, which I was kind of surprised by. I had to hold the filter over the housing until all the oil had leaked out before putting it to the side. I didn't want any oil to leak into the engine compartment. The videos I had watched showed some leakage, but not as much as I saw. I believe it was because I let the car idle before changing the oil. I ended up cleaning the oil filter housing with paper towels. The rest of the oil filter installation happened exactly as everyone described. I learned that you have to use your finger to rub fresh oil around the bottom rubber gasket of the oil filter before you put it on, to make it easier to remove during the next oil change. This is the Fumoto valve. It was recommended by Wupperger, soon-to-be Subaru, and B. Hopkins in a Subaru Outback forum in 2013. It's an oil drain plug designed with a lever to open a valve for draining oil. This allows you to do oil changes without having to remove and replace the oil drain plug, which can be messy and prone to leakage if not replaced correctly. I'm eager to try out the Fumoto valve, but after installing it, I'll still have to wait until the next oil change before I get a chance to flip the valve. So it's been 30 minutes since I removed the oil drain plug, and you can see the oil is still dripping out. But this is okay. Of all the videos I watched, only Auto Resource allowed a full 30 minutes for the oil to drain out. I can wipe down the opening and proceed with the Fumoto valve installation. The installation instructions mention to tighten the valve an eighth to a quarter of a turn after the valve has been screwed in enough to touch the drain pan. That's what I did. After double checking that the Fumoto valve was tight and closed, I poured my 5 quarts of OW20 motor oil into the funnel that was seated where the engine oil cap had been. If you don't have a funnel, Kyra Bobek in his 2016 videos simply used the top half of a 1-liter water bottle turned upside down. There's a specific method for pouring oil out of a 5-quart container. Bryant, for the Napa blog in 2019, recommended holding the container flat, as you see me doing here, to prevent gurgling and spurting of oil. There were just a few things left to do. Auto Resource advised starting the engine and letting the car idle for a minute while checking for leaks at the oil filter and engine oil cap, dipstick, and drain pan. And then after shutting the engine off, Lake Chevy recommended waiting at least 5 minutes before checking the oil dipstick for the oil level. So during that 5 minutes of waiting, I transferred oil from the drain pan into the now empty 5-quart container, and what do you know? Lake Chevy mentioned that oil spills happen the most often during this transfer phase, and they were right. Luckily, it didn't take too long to clean up. Lastly, after the 5 minutes of idle period, I was able to check the oil, and it showed there was enough. I changed my oil. Do, 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 do.